So in this practice, we're going to look at question 2.6 here. It says the diagrams below show the parts of Homo sapiens and chimpanzees. Okay, so we've got Homo sapiens as well as chimpanzees. So when you look at we have got a pelvic girdle A as well as pelvic girdle B. We have got something here. I don't know if you guys can identify what this is, but we've got C and we've got D. All right. So now they say write down the letter of the diagram that represents the pelvic structure of a quadrupedal organism, or maybe a quadruped. Remember, a quadrupedal organism, it is the one that walks on 4 legs. So which letter of the diagram represents the pelvic structure of that a quadrupedal organism? Yes, Sam?
A, sir.
A. Okay. So why did you say A?
Because of sir, it is widely open. Like
that does that correspond to a quadrupedal organism?
I meant to say B. Sorry, sir.
Why do you say B? Okay.
Like sir, on B, like if we check, it is narrow and slim, sir, so the spinal cord cannot align straight. It will be enforced to be a C-like shape.
Okay, exactly. Guys, when I explain the differences due to bipedalism, the differences between the African apes and the humans, we say that the African apes have got a longer and a narrower pelvic structure, or a pelvic girdle. It is longer, but it is narrower, right? It is longer, but it's got a narrow diameter, small diameter. Okay, that is actually what actually causes them to not be able to support a vertical weight. That is why they cannot be able to stand upright for a longer time, of course. So basically, they will end up walking with all their 4 legs, okay, rather than walking with 2 legs. So that is going to be what? That is going to be the structure B. They just wanted the letter here. Try to answer exactly as required. Now they say tabulate. You are tabulating 2 visible differences between the jaw C and D, which shows a trend in human evolution. So let's first write our table here. So when we make our table here, just gonna draw a small table. This is a small table there. And then they say we are comparing visible differences between jaw C and jaw D. So this is jaw C, this is jaw D. All right. When you look at them, the jaw C there and jaw D, what are the differences between them? What visible differences, or what differences can you guys be able to see from them? Yes, SM?
Well, sir, the difference is palate shape, sir.
Okay, the shape of the palate, right? Yes. For C?
For C, it is long and rectangular size.
Yes, so when you look at the palate shape of C, it is long and it is rectangular. You guys can see clearly that it is a longer palate. It is a longer mouth roof. You can see that the palate, remember the palate here, it is the mouth roof. And these are the teeth surrounding, these are the teeth. Okay, so it's a longer and it is a rectangular shape. What about for D? What would you say to counteract that?
For D, it is smaller and round shape.
Yes, you would say that it is shorter and round shapes. It is shorter and round. It is more rounder, or it has got a round shape. Okay, it's not rectangular. Okay, and then when you look at what are the other differences between the jaws? Any other visible thing from this given diagram? Let's see. Give it a try, everyone. Yes,
Well, sir, for C we have more pointed canines, and for D we have smaller canines.
Yes, for jaw C we have got canines that are more pointed. So here the canines are they are more pointed and they are larger. Remember, you have to mention both larger and more pointed. So we've got larger and more pointed canines. You can just write larger and more pointed canines instead of writing a big statement like I did here. But for Jaw D, you can see that the canines there, you can see here, these canines that you're talking about are these ones, Anish. These are larger and they are more pointed. But when you look at D, for D, we have got canines that are way more smaller, the smaller canines, right? And those are then less pointy. So we've got smaller canines, and then they are less pointed. So smaller and less pointed canines. What other difference can you see there, Cledo? What other differences can you see? Anyone to give it a try, guys? Just look at the jaws. There are many things that we talked about dentition when we did the session for the dentition, the differences between humans and African apes. In terms of their jaws, we already identified the first one. They are longer and rectangular. That's the palate shape. We talked about the canines. The canines of jaw C, they are larger and more pointed. The teeth are larger and more pointed. But for jaw D, they are smaller and less pointed canines. But Habile, give us one more.
So can you say that the jaw for C is well developed than the one for D?
Well, we cannot really see it from the side view. They say you need to give two visible differences. Okay, you would be able to see that the jaw, it is more pointed if you were given a view like this, whereby you are able to see the jaw exactly as it is from the side view. But now when you are looking at it from this view, from the view of the mouth, you would say that you would talk about the palate shape rather than the jaw itself, and say that the palate is longer and rectangular. So it kind of satisfies to 1 point then.
So to talk about the gaps in between the teeth, that there's no gaps for C.
Yes, exactly.
Less gaps for.
Exactly that. So when you look at the teeth of the jaw C here, jaw C has got teeth and there are gaps in between. There are gaps in between the canines, all right? But when we look at the teeth of D in this rounded palate shape, the teeth are kind of attached to one another. So we can see that that's clearly a sign that we do not have any gaps there. So we can say that here we've got larger gaps between canines. So larger gaps between the canines, or we can just say that between the teeth. But there we don't have any gaps. Okay, little to no gaps between canines. Yes, sir?
So let's say the examiner choose to maybe destroy one teeth from the D. Will still recommend that point. Like
destroying one teeth.
Yes, or two.
Well, that is a bit unnatural. If the examiner will do that, yeah, it will be a funny thing indeed, destroying one and creating a gap. But here we are talking about the natural features, right? We know that if we were to say this is a mouth of a human being, because of its shorter and rounder palate, we would say that this is most likely the mouth of a human being. Human beings, naturally, they do not have those gaps. If you have got those gaps, that's probably conditions and whatnot. But well, I don't know if examiners can really make things as tricky as that. But the point you try to avoid it. You try to avoid it because it wouldn't be that much visible in the diagram. But in a natural sense, we know that humans have got these shorter and rounder palate shapes that do not have any gaps between the canines, and the canines are smaller and they are less pointed. That's just something usually natural. But when they say give visible differences, try your best to give differences that are visible from the diagrams. Are you guys able to see that?
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Then now let's say explain the significance or the importance of the change in the pelvis from B to A. So now let's say that the pelvis has changed from B to A. So it has changed from the state of being B and to A. We say that the pelvis at B, it is long and it is narrow, right? We say that the pelvis at B is long and narrow. But when you look at the pelvis at A, you guys, what can you say about the pelvis of A?
Well, sir, the pelvis of A is short and wider.
Yes, it is short and wider. So it's short and wider. So we've got long and narrow, short and wider. This one can see that it has got a bigger diameter, kind of like it has got a bigger width, right? Or a bigger breadth than the height, which is short as well. So this is short and wider. So they are now saying, what is the significance of changing the pelvis from being long and narrow to being short and wider? What importance does that bring? Because this is evolution. We believe that there is change that happened from being long and narrow to go being short and wider. The pelvic structure changed in that way. So what significance would that bring in the organism's anatomical features is the Matebula?
There will be faster cooling of the upper body.
Faster?
Cooling of the upper body.
Why?
Because the pelvis will be able to carry the weight, and it will be bipedal. It does not need to spend most of its energy trying to walk on all four legs.
Okay. So let's just correct one thing. You have just explained the significance of bipedalism. Okay, that's true when you're explaining the significance of bipedalism. But here, from the view of this question, we're explaining why it is important to change from having a long and narrow pelvis to having a short and wider pelvis. All right. So having a short and wider pelvis, you need to kind of try and explain, Uti, what advantage does that bring? Having a short and wider pelvis. It brings bipedalism. That is the actual answer. It enables the organism to be bipedal. Now you won't have to mention the significances of bipedalism because the question was not really based on the importance of bipedalism. The question was based on the importance of changing from a long and narrow structure to a short and wider structure. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So changing from long and narrow to short and wider, it enables bipedalism. So it allows the organism to be bipedal. It enables bipedalism. Okay? Since I'm sure this is too much to explain why do you say that a short and a wider pelvis allows bipedalism. It is because it enables bipedalism since, or you can say because, the short and wider pelvis can support the upper body structure. That is the whole main point. Since the short and wider pelvic structure or the short and wider pelvis can support vertical upper body weight. So it means that the person or this organism can be able to stand upright because of this rigid structure that is able to support an upper vertical body weight. You can just write it in your own terms, guys. You don't have to write exactly the way as I've written, but as long as you retain the context, you still explain to show that you understand what it is. Bipedalism, it is brought by the shape of the pelvis, which is short and wider. So moving from a long and narrow to being a short and wider pelvis, it is actually going to do what? It is actually going to allow the organism's upper body weight to be able to be stacked vertically on top of the pelvis. It will be able to support a vertical upper body weight, enabling the organism to be bipedal. So you're explaining why this shape of being short and wider leads to bipedalism. Does that make sense, Charles?
Yes, sir.
Exactly. Okay. Let's look at another one more time. See if we can complete it. The diagrams below represent the skulls of two organisms. So we are given skulls of two organisms, namely a gorilla and a modern human. So we have got a gorilla and a modern human. We have not been told which one is which. We have skull A and skull B. So we have to kind of work our way around finding out which one is which, right? So each arrow indicates the position of the foramen magnum. So each and every arrow that you're seeing here in this diagram, for example, you can see that we've got an arrow here. So this arrow here is indicating the position of the foramen magnum. And then here, for the skull B, we've got an arrow showing the position of the foramen magnum as well. Remember, the foramen magnum, it is the hole whereby the spine enters. Okay, it is the hole in which the spine enters, I can say. Right. So now let's go to 3.2.1. If the scientific name of the organism with skull B, what is the scientific name of the organism with skull B? Yes, Matebula.
Homo sapien.
Yes, it's Homo sapien. Okay. So you can see that here we were able to arrive to that deduction by looking at the skull B. You can see that the skull B has got a larger cranium size, right? So that's most likely going to be a human. Since they say in this scenario, we are given a gorilla and a modern human. We just need to identify which one is most likely a modern human. And by looking at the cranial capacity or the cranium sizes, we can say that this is a Homo sapien. The skull B is a human. Hence, its scientific name is a Homo sapien. It must have a genus name and a species name. It's a Homo sapien. Okay? Yes, SM.
So if they say skull A, I was going to say African ape, Noma.
No. They've already told you in the scenario that it is a gorilla. So you don't have to be general and just say African ape. Remember, African ape can refer to gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos, or it can be orangutans. So the fact that they've mentioned that you are given the skulls of two organisms, and those are namely gorillas and modern humans. So you cannot just generalize it and say African ape.
Okay, sir.
Yes. That's the importance of reading the statement, by the way. Yeah. So which skull, A or B, represents a bipedal organism? Which skull, A or B, represents a bipedal organism? Which skull, A or B? Yes, sir.
B, sir.
B. Give a reason for your answer.
Because of it has an S-shaped spine, sir, and it uses two legs.
Give a visible reason for your answer, a really visible reason. Something visible from the diagram. I don't see a spine there.
Because also the position of the foramen magnum is closer to... Yes.
Closer to what?
Like say it's closer to the jaws, like it's iphakathi, sir.
It is in a more forward position. Position of the foramen magnum is in a more forward position. Okay, is in a more forward position. This more forward is very important because you know that in humans or in bipedal organisms, the position of the foramen magnum is in a more forward position. Something that is visible, although they didn't ask you for a reason here, but I just want you guys to be able to identify the visible reason. Yes, I know, guys, that you guys are well versed in this topic. You know, humans have got a S-shaped spine. Humans have got this and that, and they've got bipedalism. But the main point of this is for you guys to see the visible features. All right, that is why I'm asking what is visible in the diagram that will tell you that skull B is a bipedal organism. It is the position of the foramen magnum. That is one of the differences that we once discussed about. Okay, so I will do this, guys. I will give you this as a task, 3.2.3, and 3.2.4, whereby you explain 3 possible advantages of bipedalism for 6 marks. You guys will write those for me. That's for 6 marks. And then 3.2.4, you tabulate 3 visible differences between the skull A and the skull B. Illustrated, you need to give visible differences, and that's going to be your 18 marks. All right. You do this activity with 18 marks. You complete the 18 marks on your own. You do the activity. You pull it up by tomorrow. And then after that, we go to what? We go to this activity. This is the other activity that I'm giving you guys. It's another 18 marks. So that's your 26 marks there.